The north of Townsville right down to Mackay, and that rain ban will and already is bringing flooding.
Defence counts the toll from another deadly encounter in Afghanistan. And schools left dazed and bleeding as political passions give way to pitched battles in Cairo. The flight to freedom couldn't come quickly enough for some Australians.
We just could not get back to our hotel. We got shot at by police.
Hello and welcome to ABC News across Australia. I'm Ros Childs. The miners are propping up the local share market at the moment. The All Ords is 9 points higher, the Nikkei's down, the Dow's flat and the dollar's at $1.01 US cents. More finance later in the bulletin. If it's possible to breathe a sigh of relief after a Category 5 cyclone, then that's what's happening in North Queensland. The good news, the State Premier Anna Bligh says destruction from Cyclone Yasi is serious but not catastrophic. So far, incredibly, there have been no reports of death or serious injury. There has been severe damage and devastation in a string of centres along the North Queensland coast. Police at Ground Zero at Mission Beach, where the megastorm hit land, say they thought they were going to die. Just inland at Tully, 1 in 3 homes are believed to have lost their roofs, while at Innisfail and Silkwood, dozens of homes are also badly hit. Those that are still standing are without power and many roads are cut. At Cardwell, further south along the coast, boats have been washed into the town streets. The cyclone's wild winds and torrential rain then left their mark across a band inland to Georgetown. The system, now downgraded to Category 2 storm, continues to track west, but its cumulative effects will just add to the devastation wrought in the state over the past month. Innisfail was razed by Cyclone Larry in 2006 and then rebuilt, and it seems those new buildings have passed the test. Last night, as Cyclone Yasi roared through, the 290 km/h winds rocked buildings, but they stood firm. But the surrounding crops have been flattened. Reporter Kieran McKechnie has just filed this report.
Well, it's here on the outskirts of Innisfail that you can really see where the damage has been done from Cyclone Yasi. Behind me there's this paddock full of bananas. They've essentially been snapped in two, and this is just being replicated right across the region. There's just paddock upon paddock of banana crops that are just destroyed. It's the same for cane. Sugar cane crops right across this region have been flattened. There's going to be a massive cost to agriculture in this region. The town of Innisfail itself, though, appears to have been spared the worst. Thriving around town, there's certainly a lot of debris across roads. Trees have been uprooted. There's a lot of branches around. There's a lot of trees down. But there's not the same structural damage that I saw during Cyclone Larry. Then there were roofs ripped off countless homes. But we're not seeing that this time. So it does appear that Innisfail itself has been spared the worst, but certainly this region, and particularly agriculture in this region, has copped a battering.
Let's stay with Kieran McKechnie for the latest on the situation in Innisfail. So, Kieran, what more can you tell us about what's happening there right now?
Well, Ros, it's just such a different scene here than it was 5 years ago. I was here for Cyclone Larry in 2006, and in this very spot there was just sheer devastation. All along here, most of the houses actually had their roofs torn off. Up further on the hill, the church up there had its roof torn off as well, and it was destroyed and needed to be rebuilt. But now there's very little damage at all. A couple of gutters have blown off homes. There's a lot of debris around, as you can see. Trees have fallen down. People have been trying to clear trees out of gutters, but this is absolutely nothing like what they experienced 5 years ago.
And how are people bearing up? There must be just huge relief.
Oh, absolute relief. They really thought Armageddon was coming last night. The warnings that the Cyclone Yasi was coming directly at Innisfail. So people are so relieved that they did miss the full impact of the cyclone. They're worried, though, of course, for people further south at Mission Beach, at Tully, at Cardwell. In Tully, for instance, 1 in 3 houses have had their roofs torn off. So people here, they're saying, look, we dodged a bullet this time. Tully wasn't as badly hit last time. This time it's their turn. So their thoughts are really with people south of Innisfail.
All right, Kieran, thank you. And let's go from Innisfail now to Mission Beach, described as ground zero of Cyclone Yasi. Neville is the general manager of Castaways Resort at Mission Beach. He spent the night with 40 others in a large underground car park that he describes as a bunker.
We were very well bunkered down and built, with the big door in front of us, that was built in. So our personal protection, we felt that we were comfortable, but outside was just unbearable. It was amazing, the noise and the volume of wind and the things you could hear flying around outside. So it really was, from that point of view, incredible. But from where we were sitting, we felt quite safe.
Mission Beach has been described as ground zero. Is that your experience?
It's not. It certainly has suffered. There's roofs off houses, and there's a whole lot of foliage that's been pulled out of trees. There's a lot of trees down over the roads. But being the type of tropical place Mission Beach is, everything grows at a metre a minute, and so I think as far as Mission Beach goes, that will certainly come back.
How did everyone in that bunker cope with what was happening?
We had a number of situations, anxiety attacks, where people were sort of, wanted to get out, wanted to go outside, and wanted to, thought everyone hated them, and really emotional situations that developed very quickly.
And how did you manage that, and how long were people in the bunker for?
Well, we were in the bunker for 14 or 15 hours.
Well, that's a long time. How did you cope with people having anxiety attacks when the situation was difficult enough already?
It was interesting. In part of our planning, we had a reasonable understanding that would happen. So we discussed with the group before we started, and we had a management plan that we would manage those situations.
Inland from Mission Beach is Tully, which also bore the brunt of Yasi's fury. Ross Bello is a local councillor who went to his mother's house to sit out the cyclone, which he says was far worse than Cyclone Larry in 2006.
The wind in Larry was nowhere near the structural force that this thing was, and even after Larry, this house of Mum's got a little bit of damage, but very little, and whereas this time the roof's gone, the ceiling's gone, you can't see much inside the house bar the red bricks.
Well, can you describe to us what it was like to be in the middle of that destructive force, the noise of it, the power of it when it went over?
Yeah, it was the noise was just a very, very whistling, howling noise. And then with the thumping noise of the wind gusts, that's what was really, really awe-inspiring, so to speak. When the house went here, we couldn't even hear the roofs tearing off because the wind was howling that much.
And then the eye went over. What was that like?
Well, the eye was good because it went quiet for about 40 minutes, and that gave me a bit of time to get out and have a look, and I knew when daylight came that it was going to be pretty strong.
What are conditions like there now, Ross?
Oh, there's about a 40 kilometre an hour wind, but it's slowly getting weaker and weaker. There's a fan in the backyard. There's a part of somebody's roof in the backyard. There's trees blown over everywhere. There's iron off. Look, I would hazard a guess, but somewhere between 20 and 50% of the houses are damaged in Tully.
This time yesterday, Cairns was bracing for the full onslaught of Yasi, but in the event, the cyclone crossed the coast to the south and the city escaped the worst. Reporter Kim Landers spent the night with hundreds of other people at an evacuation centre, and she joins me now. So, Kim, what was it like where you were last night?
Well, I was at the biggest evacuation centre here in Cairns. All across North Queensland, there were about 11,000 people packed into 20 evacuation centres. This big centre in Cairns had about 2,500 people in a shopping centre. They were just sleeping on the floor, crammed into every little bit of space that they could. It was very hot and muggy. The power went off about an hour before the cyclone crossed the coast, and that just made conditions worse. People were very anxious, very nervous about what lay ahead. Even even though by then they were getting reports that the cyclone was due to cross the coast south of Cairns, a lot of people were still on edge, not only worried about where they were, but also what would be left of their homes, what sort of damage would be done to their private properties. I spoke to some of the people as they left the evacuation earlier this morning. There was a sense of relief that people were able to leave and go home, and here's a little of what some of those people have been saying.
I'm happy to head home. Yeah, see if I got a house.
I know, my husband's there. It's all good. We're very, very lucky.
Oh, so. Not too bad. I was expecting it worse. I'm going to get this unloaded.
I think it was okay, apart from the rattling and the thunder at the time.
Sorry?
Once those doors were rattling, then that was the time it was a little bit spooky.
Well, things seem to be up and running behind you, Kim. We can see cars on the road moving quite freely there. Now, we've heard that Cairns has escaped the worst, but what's the scale of the damage there?
Well, cars are out and about on the street, but there's no power. There are no traffic lights, so it is a little dodgy driving around sort of thing. There's a lot of tree branches that are down. I've been along the esplanade of Cairns, and certainly the waves are crashing on the rocks there, crashing onto the esplanade. That's normally a very nice tropical beach, but it's a very brown, ugly sea at the moment. A lot of people down there having a good look and taking photographs and getting great, bits of spray drenching them at times. But most things back to normal, it would seem, here in Cairns. The authorities are still warning people to stay off the streets, though, but as you can see, not many people are obeying that at this stage.
And it is, of course, a different story to the south of where you are, where other centres have borne the brunt of the storm.
Well, we've already heard about the devastation in places like Mission Beach and Cardwell and Tully. 4 hours drive south of Cairns is the city of Townsville, and they've also been copping a pounding from high winds. We're now getting reports that water is going into some of the main parts of the CBD in Townsville. The low-lying areas there are now experiencing a second storm surge. About a third of the population was asked to move to higher ground in friends' places. We're also told that the wastewater treatment plant has lost electricity, so authorities in Townsville are urging people to try to conserve their water. They're trying to get the electricity back onto that wastewater treatment plant, but Townsville has still got a lot to endure, I suspect.
Kim, thank you.
Thanks, Roz.
The federal government will make cash payments available to Queenslanders who suffered loss and damage from the cyclone. The Prime Minister says